Thank you for coming. Let's start this meeting off right. Oh, Annie and Mike. How many people in this room want to see the St. Paul Saints come to downtown St. Paul? Friendly audience.
Do you have to demolish a 2-block by 1 block 4-store building? Answer yes or no.
We do have to demolish
yes.
the building, yes.
How much will it cost the city to remove 2 blocks by 1 block 4 stories high of a very well-built concrete reinforced building? And where are you going to take it? That doesn't cost pennies, that costs millions. And another thing, this building has a base on it, and we have questions about pollution or soil underneath it. And the city has come now to the conclusion that they have to keep the base on it, right? Do you not think it would be much wiser just to demolish a little and use the rest for increasing our tax base in St. Paul? We have lost Macy's tax base. Let's have something that brings in money 12 months a year.
Again, I was just about to wrap up then. I'll try to take questions if that will help. But the city's position is articulated on paper, and we've looked at it, we've examined facts, we've reported back on them. The facts related to this are very real. With the building, with the orientation that's proposed, there is no ballpark. With adding parking and putting the ballpark on top of it, there is also not a ballpark design that works. We also don't have a partner that's interested in that project. I'll let Annie speak to that. And again, I appreciate folks' time. I'm here.
But I think it is too late. You didn't ask our opinion a year ago.
Yes.
You made your opinions. You didn't have your community meetings. And the mayor did not answer my phone call, and the Pioneer Press didn't print 2 of my letters, but they certainly did print Mayor Coleman's comments.
I don't think that ideas, something about the restrooms and the dugouts, I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, that's not a viable reason. You can certainly relocate those somewhere. You know, this is, at Midway Stadium, I'm sure they're not ideal. And you can get variances from the FAA, or at least try to. You know, they hear requests for variances all the time. There certainly are other kinds of things that are possible. I mean, you know, we're talking about impacting all of the residential that is in the Lowertown area now. We're talking about the farmers market. I mean, how are growers supposed to get in there? I mean, you know, it would be such a nice thing. You could have food trucks using that farmers market area for doing whatever, tailgating or something, you know. I mean, but you need some parking. You need some, it just doesn't, it's ridiculous to have just one design with no sound barriers and expect it to be used 12 months out of the year when, look at, we've got 7 months out of the year of winter here in Minnesota. I mean, you know, there's a Twins game coming up this weekend in an open-air stadium. That's, how many people are going to be there in their snowmobile suits and stuff? This is, it's crazy. When we're spending this kind of money, we should be spending it smart. And if it costs $4 million more out of $54 million to do something, you know, there's going to be revenue from this parking. There's going to be revenue from these businesses. No, nobody may have committed yet, but there's nothing on the drawing board for somebody to commit to. I mean, I think all of us are interested in helping to marshal some interest. If the city leadership can't do it, the city residents will help to do it. You know, we'll find some things that are energizing and revenue building that can be in there. So please work with us. I mean, we are excited to have this, but we don't want something on the end of the Lowertown area that really drives all of the residents out of that area removes our farmers market to who knows where, so we just have neighborhood markets, and really changes the whole texture of downtown.
What you're saying. Again, my name is Annie. I work for the St. Paul Saints. I worked for the Saints. I started in 1992. Before we ever played a game, I was there the first 4 seasons, and it was a magical thing, the way the community came out and gathered and came together. I always talk about the 3 C's of Saints baseball, which we would love to bring to Lowertown: conversation, connection, and community. And that's why I'm there, and that's why I returned to the Saints in 2004 to help make this ballpark happen. When there was a glimmer of hope that a new ballpark could be built with the city and the Saints as partners seeking some state bonding funds, we asked the mayor where he would like us to look. And he told us basically the Fort Road neighborhood and the Lowertown neighborhood. And we reached out to both communities, including city council members. And City Councilmember Thune said to us, if you're going to even look at this neighborhood, I want you to go out and meet with people. And we did. In 2009, we had at least 12 meetings. I could go back and dig through my notes. I attended a lot of the Capitol River Council community events. I hope some of you here will back me up that you've seen me around a lot. And then there was some starts and stalls with the legislative process, and basically people told me, Annie, step away and let the legislative process play out. I mean, you know, people don't want to keep seeing you going around talking about the ballpark when the legislature wasn't talking about the ballpark. So I was laying low for a bit. And you know, I'm regretting that now, but that was the advice I was given, is cool it a little bit, Annie. So we heard a lot of feedback. Basically, anytime there was someone in the room with their arms crossed in the back of the room, I would go over to Mike Beck and nudge him and say, you know, that person in the back seems like he or she has an issue. And Mike would engage that person and we would find out what the issues were. The issues were parking, noise, and lights. If we raise this building up higher, the noise and lights are going to be worse. It's not going to be better, it's going to be worse. We're trying to build it into the hill so we become part of the neighborhood. We don't want to dominate the neighborhood, we're trying to be a part of it. Our architect that we're working with is a nationally, actually internationally recognized architect. That drawing you guys see is not my favorite drawing either. We needed something quickly to get to the legislature. Yeah, it's not my, I mean, she's a really talented gal, but we gave her like 3 days to whip something up because we were told when we went around and visited with our legislative leaders, they like something to look at. So, you know, I'm sorry that's what we used, and I don't know if that's the picture I slid under your door or not.
That's what you slid under my door.
Yeah, so I'm just a baseball gal and a community person. And our organization would love to be a part of your community. And that's why we work so hard to make this happen. I mean, honest to God, this has been a labor of love. The former Senator Harrington, who used to be the chief of police, said the best thing for downtown, for Lowertown, as far as reducing crime and having more of a sense of community and having it be more dynamic, is if the Saints go down there, because good people will gather and bad people go away when good people are gathering. And we want to be a part of the good people of Lowertown.
Say, ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My question is, when you were having all these meetings,
Yes, sir.
did you ever think about meeting with Tom Erickson, whose building is right across the street from the location?
Anybody who asked us to come meet with them, we met with.
Oh, but did you ever think of...
No, I apologize. I live in Coleman Park. I don't know this neighborhood as well, or I didn't then. And basically, we sort of drew a circle around the site. And I apologize that I didn't reach out to
Let me
you.
ask you another question. Did you ever think about asking or interviewing any of the businesses around the neighborhood?
We did quite a bit of that as well.
And ask them about how it would impact them? Because I don't recall, Tom, you telling me that anybody in your building was contacted.
No, in fact, about 2 years ago.
Speak up.
About 2 years ago, when this was first, I actually tried to track down Mike Beck. I've never met him before. I still haven't met him because I've talked to him on the phone. And I did talk to him on the phone, mentioned that parking was an issue. We were to get together, and it never happened, but he assured me that before this thing got too far down the track, we would have that kind of input. And that was about 2 years ago.
When I came up with this idea in January of 2011, Mayor Coleman, somebody heard this 2 weeks ago, he had an opportunity to look at this design in its early phases. He refused to even look at the concept, so he rejected it right out of the gate. I've been steadfast over the last few years showing it to people. I went to the lawmakers up at the Capitol. A lot of them liked this, but nobody really wanted to. Andy, with all due respect, you yourself just said you didn't like the design either. What you like is the footprint. That's where we have our disagreement.
Just that first drawing of her coming in off the street. That's all I was talking about.
Yeah,
that particular drawing is not my favorite. That's all.
That was rejected as about a month ago. As far as community meetings, since January of 2011, there was one in perhaps January of 12. I met you, Andy, at in the Northern Building. As far as I know, there wasn't one in that whole 1 year span. And until that time, there wasn't another one until the Lowertown Ballpark Design and Construction Committee started meeting last October. And some of you have been to those meetings, and they forbid discussion on Gillette. They forbid the meetings being recorded. That's the truth. And only these last two meetings, the last Ballpark Committee meeting and the last Parking Committee meeting, have they actually let those of us in the audience participate. When they went through their design correct several months ago, they forbid the audience to take part. It was only the committee members. So I'm sorry this did upset me. But I'm going to get back on track and I'm going to talk about that sun issue. As far as the sun, I showed you a diagram. The major league ballparks across America, they're all over the place. Did you see that diagram? And as far as during part of the season, the building will cast a shadow across it. During part of the season, Tom's building will cast a shadow across this. During the height of the season, I don't know if I came up with this or somebody else, you've got the outfield light posts, and I'm going to talk about their height in a little while. Look at the mayor's letter, and we'll get to that in a little while. You can do a screen, almost a curtain, between the light posts, and you position it when you actually need it for a few weeks out of the season. Mike Kahn, when we first talked about this a year and a half ago, he said it was an unproven theory. I said I could build a scale model for you and get a flashlight out, and you didn't want to hear that. This is a reasoned way of dealing with the sun issue. Somebody said you could even put advertising on each side of that banner. One side would be facing 94, and it would filter the sun. It's not going to endanger any ball players.
Just to reiterate, you know, I'm all in favor of the Saints in the ballpark, but I think the city and the people involved with this thing have failed miserably in terms of reaching out to the neighborhood. I mean, Councilman Thune, I'm not an expert like you, but I know that if I'm a business and I want to do something with my business and I have to go to the planning commission and I got to go to all the neighbors and get them to sign and come to the planning commission and say, you know, I've talked to all the neighbors and this is what they think and this is how they feel, and I think that's what you have to do. And here's the city putting up this big project. And did they go over and walk across the street from their building and talk to Tom Erickson once in the last period of time, other than these last 2 months when he found out about all this stuff? Did they go to any of the tenants in Tom's building? Tom's got a tenant that's been in there for 15 years, and they counsel vulnerable adults. And they've told Tom that if this thing goes out and the parking is not going to be working for them, they're going to move. You know, where was the outreach? Like the normal person has to do if they're coming to the city to get something done. They have to go through all this stuff, and yet the city couldn't figure out, or the Saints, or whoever's involved with this, to walk across the street to Market House, to walk across the street to the Ericksons, and to talk to all of you people that are downtown in Lowertown and ask you how it's going to affect you. To me, it's just unconscionable how that's been handled. And that's my position on this thing. these numbers that they've thrown out on the parking are not correct, and we've kind of already been able to figure that out. I'm done.
Member of the Lowertown, not only the community, I live here, but also of the artist community. And I've always been for the Saints Ballpark. I think it's a wonderful idea. It sounds like a win-win situation for the Saints, but I'm feeling like as a resident and an artist, it's a lose-lose situation for us. I don't know how all these parking spaces, even along 6th Street, the north side of 6th Street, west of Sibley, those are all gone. I have 12 grandchildren and 5 children who like to come and visit us. There's no place for them to park unless they go and pay someplace. They've raised the time limit on the parking meters around the Jackson building where my studio is. I think you used to be able to park after 4 free. Now it's after 5. And if you pay those meters, which we do, you have to go down and refill them every 2 hours. Now one artist is going to run up and down 4 floors. It's like there is no consideration for the people who live in this community. I hear a very closed attitude coming from, in all respect to the Saints people. As I say, I'm all for the ballpark, but this is just so cut and dried and so hard-nosed. There must be some ways that we can make better use of that $54 million, get more year-round use out of that. That's all I have to say.
A couple more numbers. Peter, I'm going to a couple more numbers. Number 13, Mayor Coleman, and of course the Green Line will begin operating in 2014, bringing thousands of fans to the ballpark via light rail transit. And they can bring thousands of fans to the Gillette building, not only for the ball games, but all the other uses year-round, every day of the week. Number 14, Peter, let me get through these, okay? There'll be time for questions. Number 14, we are currently working with the downtown parking lot owner to determine availability of replacement spots for the Market House. In the end, I'm hopeful the city will have an option on the table for the Market House condo owners. You deserve nothing less than spaces you own within a reasonable distance of your building. Gillette gives you that. The building is there. Peter, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. As you can tell, I have a slight accent. I did not grow
Germany.
up. Kind of. I did not grow up with baseball, and I have yet to attend the whole game. I still am in full favor of the Saints moving down there. But if the slight difference between north, northeast, north, northwest is so important, how come that so many major league baseball parks are located, have their main direction all over the place? How come that you don't insist on everything being roofed, so there will be no impact of the sunshine? And how come that baseball teams, opposing baseball teams, play in the same direction? If it's so important, shouldn't that be a factor? I know of no sport which has so much reliance on intangible things like sunshine and crowds and weather.
We can increase the tax base of St.
Yes.
Paul by
Yes.
keeping the Gillette building
Yes.
standing.
Speaking the truth.
We can bring in more taxes. Now we look at the Viking Stadium, well, they're down. They don't get the pull tab revenue that they thought. But if we use the Gillette building, we will have taxes coming in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to...
No, I don't understand. Well, I would like you to speak. You're shaking your head no the whole time she's speaking. Could you speak to why you disagree?
The building has been on the market for 7 years. There's no users going into that space.
Yes, but that was before the Twin Stadium.
No, but it's an industrial use. I mean, that building was marketed on a global level. No one came to use the
That was
building.
before the same stadium was talked about, though.
There's a previous use, and even now, your proposal bill is something close to 80,000 square feet of commercial space. That's half the space of Macy's that's already closed. That's Can't get the central business district, can't get the Skyway connected office buildings.
I don't understand why the mayor, who considers himself to be a progressive person, is so cold to exploring all these options.
Well, I
Maybe
think the market's
Macy's would get
explored a
someone
lot of
in.
options, and I think the market.
I know that
Macy's spend their
Macy's,
money to open up a business.
it appears like kind of like an effort to kind of push the farmers market out. Maybe not even, you know, wholly in part just because of the stadium. It seems that as they were taking down the Macy's, they already had plans for Kowalski's. Is that not right? There wasn't even proposed at all? It was, wasn't it? Lungs, yeah, Kowalski, same thing. I played virtually all sports throughout throughout high school, so I empathize fully with, you know, what the Saints' position is. But however, as far as like the community aspect is involved, I don't necessarily know that totally tearing down would be the best. When we look at repurposing buildings, can you go to the aerial? 262 Studios was owned by industrialists, correct? Right? Okay, back in the 30s, 262 was owned by industrialists. What happened was when the industrialists moved out of their heavy equipment, artists moved in, okay? And what the artists did is they fought for their sanctity of creative space, okay?
Nearly every building you're seeing has been repurposed. None of them, very few, have the original purpose today as what was originally intended. Very good point.
So if you want to fit into the community, you know, why not fit into the community? As far as Lyra is concerned, what we're trying to do, I think what the council members, you know, I mean, he might not be aware of it, but I think what the general consensus for the council members is trying to turn Wall Street into another Nicollet, another, you know, place where we have the little, we're trying to compete with Minneapolis, it seems like, you know, maybe not, but
Pedestrian walkway.
pedestrian walkway, there's no place to get from Black Dog.
Already.
There's no place to get from Black Dog to 262 and cross the street over to, you know, you want your kids running in front of the light rail? Is this even, like, and there's also options for the bicyclists in a park and ride, because we do that at other stadiums anyway. And as far as, you know, the sign issue is concerned, if we left it as farmers market, you know, plants need sign anyway, so.
I've talked, I'm trying to wrap this up real quick, I've talked to a lot of people that go to the Saints games. None of them say they won't go if they go to Gillette. I mean, if Gillette were to happen. One other thing we didn't bring up earlier, because the field is set far back into the building, that's so 6th Street can wrap around it, and perhaps a bike lane or certainly a sidewalk. The depth of the stands behind home plate, you have to do a tier. There's not room for 20 consecutive rows. You have to be at 2 levels. Everyone I've talked to, rather than sitting in the 20th row, they'd rather sit in the 2nd row a little bit closer to the action. As I said earlier, there's very few ideal ballparks. I mean, all of them have to work within some sort of constraints. But I told you earlier, Mayor Coleman would not look at this concept 2 years ago, February, period. Wouldn't even hear what the concept was.
Excuse me, Bill, that's just not true.
I
met with you personally with the mayor's staff in his conference room last year, and we corresponded with you back and forth.
I'm talking about the first time the mayor of the city had an opportunity to look at this, Mike. You're not aware of this. He rejected it. This was in February of 2011. That's a fact. So minds were made up a long time ago to take down this building. The parking is very important. Parking for the farmers market is critical, but also the economic opportunity. As far as tenants, I don't know your name, sir.
Mike Zipko.
Yes.
Mike Zipko. I've been a retailer in downtown St. Paul for 19 years and 2 months. I've watched it all go away. I'm not finding fault with anything. I've survived. I know a little bit about the retail market. The potential tenants for this building are not the same type of potential retail tenants you would want for Macy's. The 3 potential tenants are the Twin City Model Railroad Museum. I told you their story earlier. They need to get out of Bandana Square. Their footprint is so large, they can't go into many spots. Going into the Macy's building, the cost per square foot would be prohibitive to them. The other one is 30,000 square feet. There was an artist who spoke up earlier. For a Minnesota Artisan Center, the city's concept has a classroom space and some corridors to hang art. A lot of artists find that offensive to hang art in an area where there's a ball game being played, when people are eating hot dogs and drinking beer. 30,000 square feet on the first floor. You could do something remarkable by utilizing the existing building. That one other level that was about 24,000 square feet, I said, put in that sports bar restaurant. overlooking the field. The potential is there, they're not being explored. They've been rejected.
Bill, if I may just take a second. My name is Tim Holden. I came last week to the meeting, and I just want to say my heart goes out to all the people that live downtown that are going to be affected by this, because this is going to destroy where you are. The parking is a huge, huge issue, and it should be planned before this thing takes place. That's the bottom line. It's just like the light rail. They did the same thing. They took over 1,000 spots with light rail with no plans to replace them. Now, I'm not against the stadium. I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see it get done right. And I get it done right or don't do it at all. David Thune, I give you the captain's patch again tonight. Telling people that last week you felt sad that this is a disservice to the city. All right, that's it right there, folks. This is a disservice. You didn't have your voices heard. You haven't been involved. They're going to ram this down your throats. The plans are already basically there. They're done. And Michael Hams, if you would, tell Mr. Mayor Coleman that it's time to get his resume ready, because he's going to be fired come November 5th. It's time to find a new mayor, folks. Somebody that'll listen. Somebody that'll come and listen to what you have to say. This is absolutely ridiculous that you're having this meeting after the fact. People, your voices need to be heard. That's the bottom line. Your voices need to be heard. David Thune, you're a wonderful man. Good job.
We agreed.
I wanted to bring up the fact that it's kind of discouraging hearing what's happening. Having just lost that sidewalk issue to another thing that actually is not going to do anything for St. Paul's at all. It's going to affect the sidewalk expansion. It's not going to do anything. And here we're talking about something that has a potential to do something for the tax base. We keep doing things like the one that was going to be a great big condominium, and now it's going to be much short pennier. Well, don't we own that? I mean, we own a bunch of stuff that's not really adding to the tax base at all, and we're not using space. I just don't understand. It seems as if the city government is making all these decisions for
It's
us.
your money. It's your money.
And we moved downtown. We moved from Michigan, where actually we had city council meetings where we actually had a voice. And, you know, I find that it's very difficult to be heard around here. And it's surprising because they invited people to move downtown as if they were really going to welcome residents, and now they're doing everything to make us feel unwelcome.
I'd like to interject.
There should be a cost-benefit analysis before any big project is undertaken. And I applaud Mr. Erickson and his group for trying to establish some ballpark, to use a funny term, for the Gillette idea. And there seems to be not really a very well broken down cost analysis for the other drawings and so forth. Because and I'm not even talking about the human impact and all of the things that we've discussed today, but just the basic nuts and bolts, bricks and mortar cost of taking something down, putting something up. You know, I mean, I can't even imagine how the legislature approved bonding issues and so forth without actual dollars and cents, figures and estimates. So I think it's very important before this proceeds. It sounds like, from Mr. Erickson's point of view, that the Gillette reuse project, which has many neighborhood benefits, is also probably less expensive by far than the new building concept, which has some negative impacts galore.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Schmidt. I'm a fourth-generation St. Paulite. I care about my city. I care about my community. I do have a unique perspective, I think. You can judge that in a moment here, on what's going on. I'm going to try to share what I would consider some St. Paul reality. And as I said at the last meeting, I think that Bill's vision, he's a visionary, this guy, is absolutely brilliant. I think we have an opportunity here that we really should not miss. Now, I got a question for you. How many people ever watched the show on Channel 2, Lost Twin Cities? A lot of people. It's a very popular show. I love that show. But you know what? We have lost so many landmarks in the Twin Cities in our generation, our lifetime. And thanks to sometimes the visionary or non-visionary wisdom of the city, we almost, as some of you will remember, maybe a lot of you, we almost lost the landmark center, okay? Yeah, that would have been an absolute sin. But the city in their wisdom was going to take it down. Now I'm going to give you a little different angle on this. In my community, does anybody remember the Gillette Children's Hospital by Lake Phalen? Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, now it's downtown. But again, in the wisdom of the city, they did tear down most of the hospital, which probably made sense, and now it's parkland. But does anybody remember the Gillette West Wing, which still exists? That was the library designed by Cass Gilbert, the architect of the state capitol. And I happen to be the chairman of the District 5 Gillette Site Task Force. I think, Dave, you might have been on the council back then. You probably remember that. And you know what my role was in this whole thing? My role was to do what's being done tonight and get through to the city, have them listen, and not tear that building down. And frankly, they had a lot more reasons to tear that building down than they do for the, and interestingly enough, it's the same name, the Gillette Building. Now, one was a business and one was a hospital, okay? But it's kind of ironic that it's the same doggone name. And so for 10 years, I fought the battle. And literally, at the end, I almost chained myself to a doggone bulldozer to keep them from tearing it down. Well, anybody who's interested, go out to Ivy Avenue now and see the gem in our community because of visionary thinking. And that's going on right here, right now. And it's about time that people start being visionary and seeing the vision here and not just falling for this letter. This is just absolute justification for the mayor's wishes. It's justification. Frankly, I think it's a bunch of BS. And we're smarter to let this thing go through. Okay. Everybody in this room, so we all give some applause. Another thing, does anybody remember the movie Network with William Holden? When he leans out the window, he says, "I'm mad as heck and I'm not putting up with it anymore." Well, that's what should go on here tonight. We cannot allow this to happen. And I just don't know where the doggone bulldozer is to chain myself to at this time. Okay, you guys are great. Let's go for it, okay?
One thing I want to tell you, folks, is I've been heaped a lot of scorn by some people. I've been yelled at meetings, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
I'm sorry about that.
I've seen it.
You know, Dave and I, we've disagreed a little bit over the years, as some of you know, but I think we found a shared. I'll give you a hug. This isn't, you know, the Landmark Center, it's like, I was born here but raised in rural Illinois, then I came back in 1980 after high school. It's like, it's incomprehensible that there was an argument made by the city and the powers that be to destroy that thing. Was it for a parking lot? Was it for a parking lot?
Yes.
Okay, Gillette, as I've shown you, this is real. I mean, I've renovated projects. I mean, I've never done anything like this. This is real what you're seeing. I mean, the building is structurally sound and it will take less money than the city's plan. It's not about historic preservation, it's about economic preservation. It's about preserving the farmer's market from decline. It's about the market house people. It's about giving the Twin City Model Railroad Museum a home. They're just, what are we going to do? Wait for the Minneapolis to take them or wait for them to close? Because something's going to happen to them. They're an absolute gem. You have to go revisit them again. A lot of you haven't been out there yet. Go revisit them again. Mike Zipko, you mentioned there's no tenants. They're out there if we give them, if we don't reject the space that they could come to. And what I would like to introduce you right now is a potential tenant. This is Mr. Masoud Yunus.
Masoud Yunus, actually.
Masoud, yes.
I'm actually one of the second person here in this room with a funny accent. Ironically, we both are cricket fans and followers. Avnet is really big in cricket, and so am I. Ani, thank you very much for being here too. Everyone in this room, thank you very much for inviting me over to this meeting as well. I'm going to bring in a little different perspective here because I'm not really a born St. Paul. I'm not really a born Minnesota. I was born in Dubai. I grew up playing cricket, but I made Minnesota my home about 14 years ago. And I come to farmers market here. The first place that I rented out in Minnesota was actually Colgate Plaza. And I stayed there for 4 years until I got married and we figured there is nothing much to do here. So we moved on to Woodbury, and then from there we moved on to Edinburgh. So, you know, I think I have a little different perspective that I want to bring to the city as well. Anyone know about MoneyGram? It used to be headquartered in Minnesota. Now they have a huge big presence here, but I think they moved out to Dallas. MoneyGram is actually one of the biggest sponsors of cricket in the world. They don't sponsor much in America, but they sponsor a lot of activities across the world, and they are looking to become willing partner with opportunities like logistics and operational organizations to do that. United Health Group does a lot of sponsorship, thousands and thousands of throughout the year, throughout the United States and other places as well. I think there's a big bubbling community out here in Minnesota that you can probably look into. I know this perspective has probably not been brought to you until like 6 months ago. He did brought it up, and I actually met one of the architects too. We talked about this opportunity and all that as well. I think the one thing that I bring to table here is I forged a partnership with Minnesota Twins last year. And I reached out to them, we talked about stuff, and they said, there is a real opportunity to use the ballpark for other sport, and cricket is actually one that fits very well with the bill. And they're actually, that partnership is evolving. I think that's one opportunity where the city can consider, and I'm willing to help out with anything that I can. But there is definitely a lot of potential out here to bring cricket games out to this ballpark, and as well as to the Target Stadium as well. There's a very well-educated and well-earned population or community here that follows cricket, that plays cricket, and there's a good fan base out there too. There's a lot of development that's happening. I myself is a part of a national organization called American Cricket Federation. We're doing a lot of stuff here and there too. Moving forward, I think in about 3 to 5 to 6 years, even if cricket is not being heard a lot today, it might be in the next 3 to 4 years too. And I just request you to just pay a little attention to it and say there is an opportunity possibly out there too. Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting this man. I've met a lot of nice people these last 2 years. It's hard for you to see. There's a dotted line around this. It's an oval. That's the size of a cricket field. And true, he could fit in this concept or yours, Andy. This one actually breaks the field. That's the plan area.
It can actually fit within the existing dimensions as well. That's standard dimension, but it actually still fit into this dimension that you already have out there in the ballpark.
How long do your typical games last?
So it's anywhere 3 to 4 hours, 2 to 7 hours, 2 to 5 days.
Money there.
I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day who woke up early in the morning, like 4 o'clock, to watch this golf tournament in England or somewhere. And I said, well, Americans can watch cricket too.
Thank you. A friend of mine, Charles Senkler, has been a business owner in the city for many years. Go ahead, Charles.
Hello, everyone. And I don't really have a dog in the fight. I live downtown, but I live up by St. Joe's Hospital. I've looked at Lowertown for the last 25 years. I did some drawing when they redid Mears Park to structure the little streams and everything. So I've been involved. I've been around the Mears office with Coleman and different people, and ran a restaurant, a small business in St. Paul for 22 years. Born in St. Paul, lived in St. Paul. I love St. Paul. I think Lowertown is actually the jewel of St. Paul. I mean, it's the hippest part of St. Paul. It's got the most potential of St. Paul. So in my career, what I do is I do a lot of design work, mostly interiors, space planning for major hospitality people internationally. I've worked all over the world. I've worked for Walt Disney. I've worked for Radisson's, Four Seasons Hotels. I've done places in Honduras and Mexico and Paris, France. And I've had a lot of experience working with really big-time developers. I mean, big-time developers. Disney Development Company is huge. Their budgets are huge. I met Bill, became aware of this project. I think the potential, the revenue streams that could be developed off this building are unbelievable. And it boggles my mind that there's even this conversation going on with the people in the city. And Annie, you're smiling and all that, but I'm telling you, Saints are secondary to this neighborhood. You know, if the Saints can't fit in this neighborhood, The Saints are gonna have to adapt. The neighborhood shouldn't adapt. You know, we live here, this is our city. So I think, you know, looking at everything, the whole situation, realizing that the mayor's office is frantically trying to tear this building down to end the conversation.
That's exactly what's happening.
Also considering that, you know, just the whole political thing that goes on in this city sometimes just makes me ill. You know, I mean, I think that the citizens, their potential, what we can have, St. Paul's the capital of Minnesota.
Yes.
We're the capital city. We're treated like a bunch of bumpkins from Northfield. You know, I think that we deserve the city to stop all their plans and stop projecting their plan for 3 days. They've had 3 days to develop the visual that is just basically like a little propaganda piece that they put up. But 3 days thinking about this thing. Hasco's got a couple thousand hours in this thing for nothing. Just because he loves St. Paul and wants to be part of the deal. I think we, Hasco, me, you, we deserve a moratorium on any development on this thing and get an unbiased, uninfluenced architectural design group, somebody from out of state, somebody that's not DFL, somebody that's not involved with the mayor's office, and analyze the whole situation from a cost revenue. What are the revenue streams? What are the costs? What are the deficits? Thanks.
How is it going to be done? How would we initiate that kind of change?
I'm going to get to that in the call to action here in a couple minutes. Nadine, you have a question or comment?
Hello, my name is Nadine. I'm deaf, hard of hearing. Okay, I'm hard of hearing. You hear me okay? Yes. Okay. I work for the deaf hard of hearing service, okay, for the state. Okay. Now, I lived here 13 years. I moved here. What does Twin City mean? Oh, what's that? You know, St. Paul? Oh, St. Paul. I got the job, worked for the state. I like St. Paul because it's so quiet, 39, clean. And I work for the deaf hard of hearing. I learned a lot of deaf people, deaf hard of hearing people here. They have Top the Hall. That club in St. Paul, Marshall and Fairview, 3. That Thompson Hall had 125 years there in St. Paul. And also I learned a lot of deaf people and hard of hearing, deaf blind. They go to baseball in Twin City and Indiana, too far. Oh, well. Why not here at St. Paul? Baseball would be great. Many disabilities live here around this area in St. Paul. And there's an apartment here too. They left the house, they're closing here at St. Paul too. And also, the deaf people have a tournament. I think it's every 2 or 4 years. They cannot find a place. They have to go all the way up to Bridgeville. They go all the way to the Rapids. It's too far. Many deaf people live here in this area of St. Paul. Some, they live in Minneapolis. Very few deaf people there. So I said, why not taxable? It would be nice to have a baseball here. And why not the deaf people come here for a baseball tournament? And also, the Deaf and Rarest, Deaf Nation conference come to Minneapolis, and why not here? It'll be nice in St. Paul. I like St. Paul. So,
yes, ma'am. You've had your hand up a long time.
I'm probably the oldest person in the room, and I can remember when downtown St. Paul in the 30s was a very exciting and vibrant place. I've lived overseas for a good part of my life, but I came back here 20 years ago. And I have been very sad to see what short-sighted thinking appears to be going on in Minnesota politics, whether it's DFL or Republican. Downtown St. Paul right now has a terrible parking problem. One reason that so many retail and other businesses moved out to the suburbs originally was because long before the landmark building was threatened, parking was not free. So the suburbs began to develop and pick up all of that parking. They had the parking space. So way back then, the failure to address the parking problem is one reason that downtown St. Paul began to sink. Some places were required to build parking for customers or residents. Unfortunately, the city has recently not been able to see that there are enough spaces for the people who are living downtown to keep their cars. A lot of families have to be two-car families, and there certainly is not provision for 2 cars per household. But I think that the inflexibility that was shown in the development of light rail is now being the same symptom again. We didn't know about enough of the consequences. Again, the accounting, the breakdowns on costs have been very much the last thing for us to hear about. The church that I belong to in the last year, 2 years, has managed to repurpose their, 80-year-old building into something that's very new and will work for the next 25 or 30 years, I believe. I've seen how they did it. They started by, what do we need? What are the things that we want to have there? And then they priced it out over and over and over again. They also hired people to plan so that when the contracts came out, we had the proper 20 or 30 or 35% minority businesses represented. It can be done, but that's got to be the goal, a big, long-term picture. And certainly the parking is more important for downtown than whether it's a baseball park. I like the idea of cricket. Maybe you could get a little soccer field for kindergartners. But I think we really must think about the 20-year period, not just now. Thank you.
I wish that the city would do one of 2 things. I wish that they would either kill this project, say, we don't care about the merits of it, just kill it, or give us real numbers, because what you've given us so far, they're pretty dubious. And I don't think people believe them. You know, we looked at them and they did not add up. So one of those 2 things I think would help.
Kind of come near the end here. I don't know much more. What time is it? What time is it? 9:30? We have one of, Lovell, I love you. We have 2 very differing viewpoints. And all of us in this room want the Saints to come down here. I think we have that agreement. I've been down here a long time, and I think we're about to make a big mistake. How many of you in this room think we're about to make a big mistake?
Well, can I say something?
Terry, real quick, yes. Terry, real quick, yes.
I'm happy with the Saints person who said we're Bowery. There are highly qualified people here. You've got corporate leaders living here.
John.
I'm a PhD. I've got people in corporate in our building, our authors and everything else.
Close to your mouth, Terry.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people living in Lowertown. And infer that we're just a bunch of Boweries and all that. I was incensed about that. I didn't like it.
I did not say Bowery. Did anybody hear me say Bowery?
Yes. I heard that we were.
I'm sorry, but I did not. So I just want to be clear.
Okay, you didn't say Bowery, but I'm using the inference.
I apologize. That's not at all.
We are, this is highly qualified. These are top people in this area. And there's thousands of people living here. And they're impacting all of us. And we don't like it.
What can we do? Mayor Coleman, he wants the building down. You know, at this point, no matter what we say, he's right, we're wrong. You know, it's just...
Shame on him. Shame on the mayor. Shame on the mayor.
He's wrong. If I thought this was a good idea, I would look you in the eye and tell you. I've been here, we've made a lot of mistakes. Look at Gaultier Plaza. I heard this doesn't have a feasibility study. Look what happened to Gaultier Plaza. Look what happened to Town Square, the World Trade Center. Feasibility studies don't often turn out the way we've been told they're going to. You got a man like Charles that knows the world and says, we got something pretty big on our hands. I mean, this guy's an expert. What can we do? You can email on your, if you haven't already, fire the mayor! Fire the mayor! This isn't about politics right now.
We don't have to fire anyone.
This isn't about politics.
Together as a community.
What can you do at this point? Take another flyer on your way out if you can. There's the mayor's email address, his phone number, CC the council. Tell them your thoughts. 60 letters were delivered to them this morning by the Market House people. There's also a petition form up here. If you'd like to take a petition form with the flyer, sell this idea to people. Start collecting signatures. Let the mayor see 100, 200, 300. This will have impact. Maybe we can get 1,000 signatures, maybe 2,000, maybe 5,000. If everybody in this room found 20 people to put their name on the list, that starts adding up very quickly. The theme of this effort is there is still time and let's do it right.
Do the job right or not at all?
Yeah. There's still time, let's do it right. Let's have a seat. We're going to have a little culture right now. Come up here, Catherine. Catherine sent me a very sweet email a couple of weeks ago, a month or two ago. She wrote a poem about this, and I don't, most of you have not heard this, but she's going to read it to you right now. Have a seat for 2 more minutes, okay?
Lines for Lowertown. Lines for Lowertown. Give the people a voice to make our choice. We pay the tax. We want the chance to relax in an amphitheater all year long. Don't mess it up. It's the last chance we'll get to reuse our resources, to recycle Gillette. Who knows? It may even be noted by Larry Millette. Support baseball and community. The people and saints will rejoice.
Thank you for coming. If you have more questions, I'll stick around if you want.